The Electricity Act 2023, in line with the amendment of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, empowers the subnational governments to legislate on the business of electricity within their respective states. In April 2024, NERC issued orders of transfer of regulatory oversight of the electricity market from NERC to the respective regulatory bodies set up in 3 states, and that is Enugu, Ekiti, and Ondo States. This order was to be effective 1st of May 2024, with the expectation that the transition from NERC to the state regulator will be completed not later than 6 months. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 22nd October, will take the 6 months time frame, which is expected to end NERC's regulatory oversight of the electricity business in Ekiti and Ondo State, which will be carved out from the Benin Electricity Distribution Company, and we have Enugu State within the Enugu Electricity Distribution franchise. So with that background, the objective of this webinar today is to assess the readiness of these states in assuming regulatory autonomy of their respective electricity markets from tomorrow, with a focus on the challenges they have faced in the preparation process, what the electricity customers should expect in meeting their energy demands, how the role of the private sector will be leveraged in promoting the sustainability and growth of state electricity markets, and finally, how the 3 states plan to maintain long-term synergy with NERC and the potential impact on overall national economic growth. Joining me today to have this conversation, which promises to be insightful, is Mr. Chijioke Okonkwo, who is the chairman and CEO of the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission, EERC. Mr. Okonkwo, thank you very much for joining us on time. You're welcome to this EMRC webinar series.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Our second guest is Engineer Tunji Ariyomo. He's the chairman, Electricity Regulatory Transition Committee for Ondo States. Unfortunately, he hasn't joined yet, but he's trying all his technical best to be with us this afternoon. Last but not the least is Professor Mobalaji Aluko, who is the Commissioner of Infrastructure and Public Utilities of Ekiti State. The idea is to have a 1 hour, 50 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes webinar session. After our discussion, the plan is to open it up to the audience to post questions, which will be selected for the panelists. As it is, Mr. Okonkwo, it seems it's just you and I that will be having this conversation to start with, but I know we'll have a great conversation. So I think to just get, just to get into it, the market design. What is Enugu's market design like? I mean, before we delve into the transition process, it'd be great to hear from you. The audience would like to hear from you what your electricity market will look like. And more importantly, what informed this design? As we know, for the benefits of the audience, an electric market structure describes the way that various market participants interact to produce and deliver electricity to the ultimate consumer. Our market design today has MBT from the diagram, which is up, has MBT at the center as the bulk buyer, buys this power from different power developers or independent power producers, generators, and sells it through a vesting contract distribution company. You have NISO in the middle of that with 2 functions. One is for system operations, managing the load as it's distributed. And then you have market operations, managing the commercial part of the business, of the unit. So with that in mind, I'll hand over to you to tell us what Enugu electricity market design looks like. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, Lady Rahela. And good afternoon, audience. Enugu State market design is significantly different from what you get at the national level. So what you have just presented happens to be the national wholesale electricity market arrangement or design, as the case may be. You know, that will continue to drive the electricity industry as we know it today in Nigeria, where MBET continues to or ceases to play a role, and where we're looking to have distribution companies sign up bilateral agreements with generation companies so that the wholesale electricity market would actually be driven by contracts, effective contracts. However, what we have within it, what we are implementing within Enugu State, starting tomorrow, is a market arrangement that does not speak to only one distribution company offering this service, electricity services, in the state. Rather, we are looking to have a market design that encourages private sector participation in generation, the evolution of the distribution company we have set up specifically for Enugu State today to one that, to two components, one being the medium voltage distribution arrangement, where from the 33 kVA upwards would become a wires business, while the 11 kVA downwards would be a series or would accommodate a series of retail businesses, so that wherever the distribution company as we know it today feels that is lacking in providing effective services to the consumers or its customers, would actually open up that particular market for retailing companies to come in, take over, reinforce the network, meet our customers, and provide electricity services to those customers by signing power purchase agreements with the various IPPs we're inviting to set up within the state. Now, at the beginning, at the early stages, we know that we have one distribution company in place, and we're inviting potential generation companies to come and set up their power plants in the state. Now, one of the few things that we are going to implement within the state that is not obtainable at the national level is the elimination of subsidy. So the state is driving private sector investment across the entire electricity industry in the state that pays back 100% from day one of the investment that as tariff for power purchase agreements that exist within the state. We're not looking to subsidize consumption, but rather the state is looking to support private sector participants or developers or investors in setting up their power plants or projects, as the case may be, you know, supporting them financially and with every other incentive that we're putting in place to ensure that their projects kick off the ground. We are supporting them to make sure that that capital investment that the state would make into this project or would offtake from the developer by having provided some level of incentive, be it land, be it resolving its right of way, would not be added into the tariff as costs that would have to be recovered. So we are looking to reduce the cost of setting up these projects so that in recovering costs, the actual tariff will be what will be approved for these developers to recover and ensure that they recover, the developers are also made whole, you know, in providing their service. And moving forward, we are also promoting the use of renewables to access locations where electricity services do not currently exist within our state. And in doing so, we are looking to have off-grid developers, mini-grid developers, and other service providers take advantage of the opportunities that are presented within the various communities that exist within Enugu State that are not connected to the current distribution arrangements to set up their power plants. That in time, we can integrate this into one network where trading of electricity could actually be consolidated on. Thereby, if I have excess capacity that could go into this network, I could supply the next community with energy, considering that the mini-grid or off-grid network has been integrated into one. So this opens up the value chain. That's opportunities across the entire value chain, be it in generation or in transmission, across the distribution network, considering that it will evolve to being a wires business, and the new opportunity of retailing in electricity, as much as the mini-grid, off-grid, and other renewable opportunities that, that can be taken advantage of within our state in developing our market. And in time, once we have this fully integrated network, we would have our own state-owned system operator that will guide or that will drive the process, or that will be nominated by the various market participants to drive the process. You know, and finally, I would like to say that everything starts gradually. I mean, we're dealing with one distribution company that has been set up specifically for the state.
Yes.
And I expect that it will evolve into a multi-purpose business in which, at the end of the day, in that evolution, we would have had a market consolidated within our state where trading of electricity would be driven by efficiency, how do I put it? Efficiency in service delivery, demand, and effective contracts that are honored by all the market participants.
That is awesome, Chijioke. And you mentioned something that that's quite interesting, and I would like us to just hear more about that. You mentioned that there will be no subsidies, that the state does not intend to provide any form of subsidy at the consumption level.
Yes.
Also, EERC have recently, and speaking to that, EERC have recently issued a tariff methodology, which is based on a rate of return regulation, also called cost of service regulation. Interestingly, this contrasts with NERC's methodology, which is a building blocks approach known as an incentive-based regulation. As you know, rate of return regulation adjusts overall pricing or overall price levels according to the operator's accounting costs and cost of capital. Is this not a concern for EERC, given the high inflation rates in the country today that is being tackled by the CBN with incremental interest rates? Now, I ask this because this situation, coupled with no state subsidies, is bound to skyrocket retail tariffs in Enugu. A recent World Bank report says that 129 million of Nigerians are trapped in poverty today. The Cable Index puts Enugu's multidimensional poverty rate at 63.1%. With all this gloomy picture, sort of, how does the state, with the regulatory commission that you chair, intend to manage this? Because 63% is quite high, inflation is high, so borrowing rate is very high, and if you're using rate of return regulation, then tariffs are bound to skyrocket.
So let me start by saying that Enugu State is not immune to the national crisis, economic crisis that Nigeria is facing right now. Truth be told, those are part of the challenges that we are facing in trying to develop a subnational electricity market. I mean, we cannot run away from the current FX rates or inflation demands as it is. However, what we can do as a state is put measures in place that, one, recovers exactly what he's supposed to be investing to set up his or her project within our state. So rather than accommodate the FX rate, we do not expect investments to come in USD or any other currency, as the case may be. We are hoping that developers that are interested in coming to play in our space invest their Naira So even if you're a foreign investor that's coming into Nigeria and you see Enugu as a potential environment where you can actually, how do I put it now, set up your project, convert that money to Naira and come and invest in our space. We can only guarantee what we have control over. And we are already aware that we're aware of the fact that your revenue is also coming in Naira. So what I'm saying is that we cannot run away from the FX rates. And rather than have investors coming to invest dollars in our state, we would like them to change that dollars to Naira and make their investments in Naira, since their revenue is also coming in Naira. That is one component of it. Now, the state, considering the financial implications of probably supporting investors in putting in place a viable project that guarantees return on investment, we are working with 2 private sector financial institutions that are willing to support electricity projects within the state. One of them is the infra credit that would ensure that developers that are courageous, that are willing to come and play in our space, do get a good FX rate and payback period that extends, how do I put it now, return on investment or recovery of their investment over a time that would accommodate a comfortable tariff arrangement. While the second private sector institution that we're working with is the Infrastructure Bank. And the Infrastructure Bank has magnanimously, how do I put it now, is supporting the state in, how do I put it now, working with developers to syndicate financing for their projects. Financing that does not, that speaks to them getting comfortable debt components rather than just invest equity and take commercial banks or any other banking institution or financial institution taking advantage of them to increase whatever rates they are going to have to access the debt component of for their projects. You know, and these are 2 aspects that the private sector, infra credit and the infrastructure bank, are supporting Enugu State developers that are willing to move into the state to come and play. Now, the third aspect of it is the agency that the state government also established with the EERC, and that is the Enugu State Electrification Agency. Enugu State Electrification Agency would support private developers with funding. It's meant to manage the Enugu State Electrification Funds with funding for projects that are targeted on meeting social interventions that would directly impact on citizens of the state, you know, to take these projects off the ground. It would also undertake the the access for right of way for most of these projects, and could also drive the process to have land made available to potential developers, thereby managing the cost of these projects that any developer would have been expected to bear, you know, to have their projects take off the ground. That way, we feel that if any developer now signs a power purchase agreement with any of the customers in the state, that they would also be recovering 100% of the tariff that they would get and wouldn't be, how do I put it now, pressured by FX rates, since they have invested in Naira and are recovering their revenue in Naira. I hope that speaks to some of the plans that we have put in place.
Yeah, I mean, incredible. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Chijoke?
Yes, I do.
You can, okay. I hear you about, you know, investors coming and, you know, you expect them to come, you know, to convert their dollars in Naira, but even if you set that aside and that happens, even locally with the distribution companies, or even transmission generators, they buy most of their assets in dollars. I mean, meters, for example, transformers, all these have dollar components. So will that not be you just, or the regulatory commission burying its head and just saying, no, such is out, but at the back end of calculations, there will be indexation to dollar. You can't really run away from it. It's the same argument, you know, in terms of gas to power. Why isn't gas priced in Naira? I mean, we could discuss that till thy kingdom come, but, you know,
yes,
if the cost of getting that gas is financed with dollars, then, you know, there will be a dollar implication in that sense. And we have the same thing in power.
So, Rahela, let's even take on that point you just raised. Why
Yes.
isn't gas priced in Naira? I mean, yes, investments have been made, but you can capture the cost of that investment in Naira. I mean, yes, over time, are we probably going to now live with the fact that our Naira can never, ever recover? What if improvements starts kicking in and things change? Would you also now continue to index the price in dollar because you're trying to recover dollar? I mean, this is something we should change as a country. You know, this is our currency. We do not trade in Naira. Sorry, in US dollars. I go to the market and I do not give the market woman would love to collect the dollars if I were meant to give it to her. But I'm not trading in USD. You know, yeah. So I actually will go to a bureau de change guy, change that dollars to Naira, and irrespective of the price, I'll bargain and buy. So let's yeah, anybody that is a foreign investor would probably want to recover money so that they can repatriate their funds. But truth be told, if things change, would you want to under-recover? I mean, let's peg it somewhere and actually start working on something different. Let us not continue to belabor the issue that has kept us where we are till date, because we are strengthening the dollar by continuing to recover dollar instead of strengthening the Naira. And another thing, I should actually say this, really, that this is not an Enugu State issue. This should be a national policy that should be adopted across board, that lets investments that are coming into Nigeria. Imagine a situation whereby you just mentioned gas, and the price of gas keeps on changing. It goes into the tariff of what Nigerians are paying for something that is beneath their feet. You know, what investments came with that to harness gas is the infrastructure, the production of that gas, the pipelines to supply it. Okay, let me say this and say it up front. Quite a number of individuals, potential investors, are investing in having meters locally assembled here in Nigeria. We want to take advantage of them. Our solutions should be homegrown that speaks to the long term and not just short term. We wouldn't want everybody that is probably coming in to adopt what is obtainable outside and then come and implement here. No, we want homegrown solutions. Let us use meters that are manufactured locally. Let us, how do I put it, fabricate some of the equipment that can be fabricated here and use them. You know, that would even increase local productivity of electrical goods and services. I would like to even say that Cable Metal, one of these cable manufacturers, produces one of the best cables you can get in sub-Saharan African region. So why can't we patronize our own that we are paying for in Naira rather than looking for every solution to come in from outside? I know that the turbines have to come in from outside, but peg the price at what cost it came into the country with, and let us start off.
Well, I mean, okay, I hear you. I hear you, but all these things you're talking about will not happen overnight. It will take time for us to be producing our required assets.
Please, let me say this. Let me say this, because I keep saying it everywhere. Use us as a pilot. Let us try. We have already taken this initiative. We've jumped head in first.
We are looking forward to it. We are rooting for you, Enugu, because you are at the forefront. And that is why this conversation is quite interesting. And, you know, tomorrow you take over. I mean, from 22nd, which is tomorrow, NERC ceases to regulate anything in your state. Now, as we transition, or as the state transitions tomorrow, what will the tariffs look like? Because that is, you've talked about subsidies not being part of it, talked about a different methodology. So how is that going to manage? If I was living in Enugu, does that mean I'll wake up tomorrow morning and my tariffs have gone from maybe a band B from 70 something or 60 something to 300? Is that what's going to happen? How are you?
That's not what we are hoping would happen.
Okay, so what's going to happen? You know,
the transition for us, while the regulatory oversight has now been handed over to us, we still have to undergo that process of reviewing the tariff application of the various players that are going to come into our state to play. Now, what we are inheriting is a tariff design that speaks to so much disparity between the band A customers and the various other bands. You know, I believe we've had this conversation basically before, but even in looking at the tariff band A arrangement, it is not uniform across the entire discourse at the federal level. You know, some are paying 225. We in Enugu here are paying 225. Some are paying 209 for being a band A customer. Some are paying 206, as the case may be. You know, we do not know what the tariff would be. What we're going to give to the various operators is the actual cost of recovering their investment and putting a reasonable profit in there as well for them to also take advantage of. But we're not saying that it's rocket science that it will happen from day one. No. We are going to work with the distribution company that is that's going to operate in our space immediately and determine what the actual cost of tariff may be. Now, while there is the banding arrangement to offtake power from the grid, let us not forget that citizens of Enugu State that do not even have that supply of 20 hours and above are paying over 350 to 500 naira per kilowatt hour now because they're using their generators or diesel-fired plants.
Yeah.
So when I say 350, that was when fuel was 750 to 800 per liter. Right
Correct.
now, I don't know how much you guys are buying fuel in Enugu. Well, I just left Abuja, so I say between the 1,050 to 1,070. But here in Enugu, a liter of petrol is between 1,250 to 1,300. They are paying so much to run between I better pass my neighbor to a diesel-fired plant. And what we're saying, that is the cost that in developing our policy, when we developed the policy last year, that the 500 megawatts of generation was based on consumers or customers in Enugu State, citizens, self-generation, over 500 megawatts. So if they can afford to power their gens or their, for self-generation for a period of time and are willing to pay that cost, no matter the tariff we put in place, I can comfortably say that it will be less than what it would have cost them to use their generators. So we're saying, let us even move away from being a generator republic as a starting point. And then let competition drive down the cost of delivering that service to the point where it probably is less than what they're paying as band A customers at the national level. And probably further down to the point where citizens will be very happy to pay that energy, you know, at the actual cost of delivering that service.
See, Chidoke, no doubt. I mean, everything you're saying is spot on. And the fact that electricity now from the grid, it's more competitive because of the alternative generation that people have access to. No doubt, no question about that. But tomorrow, when you take over, what I'm hearing you say is that you will have to maintain the status quo for a period. Is that the case? Because if you transition tomorrow, there's still the banding. Your tariff methodology does not speak to the categorization of customers. How is that going to be? Are we going back to the old days of R1, R2, R3? Are you maintaining the banding that we've been on for the past couple of years? Is there a new arrangement for that? Your tariff methodology is silent on that. Also the policy. So tomorrow, as Enugu transitions, what will the consumers or electricity customers in Enugu State be paying? Will they remain on the structure of the national grid or the NERC, as it were, at the center, or there is a change? So that's really what I'm looking at. I mean, eventually, I know that customers will prefer to have grid grid supply because it's much cheaper compared to self-generation using fossil fuel, which is also, detrimental to our environment. But today, as they transition, there's a tariff. What is going to happen? And for your Enugu citizens listening to you, what's going to happen?
So let me say this. Yes, while we would want to see that immediate change in their tariff, it's not going to happen by the flip of a switch. No.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about less than 24 hours before Enugu takes full control, and while I like to say that the change will be immediate, it cannot be immediate. I think it's necessary we actually put that out there for customers to know that, yes, a change is going to come. A change is actually now in the offing, but that it cannot be effected immediately. No, it won't be immediate, So we are looking at a transition now within the SubCo, that's the main power electricity distribution company, to evolve from moving away from what it currently has, to what it is proposing that guarantees its return on its investment. We're not going to be the one that will impose banding arrangements on the offtake, on the service provider, that's the distribution company. No, we're not also going to impose, going back to the old regime of having customers categorization based on residential, commercial, or industrial. No, as much as I'd like to see that happen, we would like the how do I put it now, service provider, which is the main power disco, to present to us what it wants as its tariff structure based on its tariff application that guarantees a return on all its investments, for its customers. And based on that, we'll review, evaluate it, ensure that it speaks to the actual price that doesn't just pay the bilateral agreements that is going to sign with its generation service provider, what is Genco, but as it continues to offtake energy from the grid, pay for those services that are associated with grid-connected energy until we even have our embedded generation or distributed generation take off and continue to expand on its supply to customers to develop its market. And like I said, yes, it's about to unbundle at that level. Now, while I'm probably going to, I would want us to leave it as it is because it's a transition and not immediate. We are definitely moving away from the national arrangement that is that gives birth to our current tariff arrangements.
All right. So so what you're essentially saying is that the transition will happen with the current structure for a period of time before you transition to what you're speaking to, whereby the SubCo will present to the regulator.
Can I say that it starts tomorrow? Instead of saying for a period of time, let's not put time to it because it starts tomorrow.
No, I know it starts tomorrow. So what I'm saying to you is that what your feedback from what we are saying is that from tomorrow, the 5 bands still remain because it's a going concern. Lights are not going to be shut down in Enugu. So customers are still going to be getting their electricity. The people will bend.
Like you rightly said, it's a going concern. Yes,
exactly.
We don't expect us to be shut off from the grid. So we expect that.
So what I'm saying is that from tomorrow, the status quo, even if Enugu Regulatory Commission is taking over 100%, the tariff structure as it is today remains until when until that such a time when you say that it will be changed in line with what you have. Fantastic. Okay, so that, at least now we understand that, because I was curious to know what will happen tomorrow, because no subsidies in Enugu State. You have a rate of return regulation. How will that happen from tomorrow? So I think it's a good thing so that there's no break in transmission, and over time, you
don't get to where there'll be a break in transmission.
Okay, now going back into your policy, one of the medium-term objectives contained in Enugu electricity policy of August 2023 expects full commercial operations with peak energy cumulatively traded in the Enugu energy market, reaching a minimum of 100 megawatts by 31st December 2024. and increasing cumulatively to 300 megawatts by 31st December 2026. The policy refers to Enugu being allocated barely 70 megawatts from the grid in 2023 to meet the energy demands of over 5 million citizens. Now, what is the energy demand for Enugu State today? And how will this medium-term target be achieved? We are probably at 70 or 80. By December, you're expecting to hit 100. And from the trajectory, it seems that Enugu will try to add on 100 megawatts every year. So are you on the way of meeting these targets as stipulated in your policy?
So Rahila, we have started. Part of everything we have been doing, we have started. Part of everything we have been doing since we took over was in preparation for this day, where we can actually now start reviewing applications and issuing licenses to investors and developers that are keen to come into Enugu and set up their projects, be it in generation, transmission, distribution, or retailing. Now, let me backtrack a bit. When you ask what is the actual demand for Enugu, as you can see, our policy puts self-generation at 500. And as you can see, we are also receiving from the national grid between 69 and 70 as of 2023. You know, and well, in rough calculation, it means that there currently may be a demand. There currently is a demand of approximately 570 megawatts in total, in which only 70 is met from the services being received from the grid, while others are self-generation, be it industrial, commercial, or residential purposes, for residential purposes. Now, moving a bit, since we came in, we have initiated 4 studies within the state. One is the load demand study to determine what the actual load is, and not just actual load, but actual load by communities is across the state. And we're being supported by the AFDB in this project. You know, we are also undertaking, in fact, the state government is funding and undertaking a community categorization and enumeration study, because we have identified that 125 communities, over 125 communities within the state are either underserved or unserved at all. So the third project, let me finish up the studies that we are actually about to undertake. The third study we are actually about to do is an assessment between us and the SUBCO of the electricity infrastructure within the state, so that we can know where they can actually meet the specific demand for, by community or by town or clan, as the case may be, and where they may be lacking in delivering that 24/7 service for the long term, so that we can identify what sort of solutions we can actually propose to ensure or guarantee that the citizens of the state receive adequate supply. And the final study we're about to undertake happens to be the natural resources study, to determine what natural resources exist, energy natural resources study, to determine what natural resources exist within the state that could be used to generate electricity for the citizens of the state, and tie those natural resources based on their quality and quantity to the communities that are close by, while also reviewing the investment that has to go into supplying communities that are not close by. This would help developers, investors, to determine where they locate their project, close to the fuel source or close to the customers, so that they would actually put in place that access requirement to access the fuel or transmission infrastructure to connect to the customers. That way, we can actually now work towards having an energy integrated resource plan for Enugu State, while we are also working on a reliability plan, electricity reliability plan as prescribed in our law, you know, to guide electricity development within the state. Now, let me go back to what is currently obtainable in Enugu State. Yes, last year we were getting between 69 and 70 megawatts for the whole state from the national grid. But today, I mean, from the data that has been supplied us by our SUBCO, we're getting 120 something, 124 megawatts. from the national grid. Now, the consistency of that is what we will want to be sure of when we start reviewing all their documents, because we don't want them to, well, hit 125 today and tomorrow they fall back to 70. I mean, in the past, should I say 3 days between Friday and today, we have had 2-3 grid collapses, 1 partial, 2 total. And what we are trying to do within the state, really, let me hit this nail on the head, is to complement what is coming from the national arrangement, from the national grid. That if we had embedded generation or distributed generation or IPPs set up in the state with effective contracts where the customers are ready to pay, then whenever there's a grid collapse, at least they can fall back on the generation within the state. So we see ourselves as complementing what is happening at the national level, knowing fully well where that firm handshake is as to controls, you know, between the national arrangements, wholesale electricity markets, and the state markets that we are developing. The national regulators' role as much as the state regulators' role. We see where there's the firm handshake and where we complement each other's roles. You know, so we do not see ourselves as moving away from the national arrangements. No, we see ourselves as complementing what is obtainable at the national level by increasing generation, so that if whatever we probably do not take from the national level, from the national grid, can go to other states. And we will continue to remain a part of Nigeria. Enugu State is not walking away from being a Nigerian state.
Absolutely.
So any capacity added is a national addition. It hits the nation because it's an addition to the national generation capacity. You know, but don't you think we have been stuck in this 4,000, 4,500 megawatts for too long? At least it's been there for over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, it's far too long.
So let us start generating in-state for the benefit of the citizens so that we can grow the total generation capacity while also resolving some of the quagmires that may come whenever there is a national grid collapse. So we are complementing what we are getting from the national grid by setting up ours. And I mean, I would like to say that tomorrow we are also licensing our first generation company.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
So, I mean, for those that are willing to run this race with us, take the chance on us and see that we are ready to sign effective PPAs where you get 100% return on your investment. The door is open. Enugu State is open for electricity investment.
I'm going to come to invest.
10 megawatts license. And another thing, please. Our plan is not to have one generation company running the whole state. No. We're looking at pockets of generation. 10 megawatts here, 5 megawatts there, 20 megawatts there, across the entire state, scattered across the state, and integrating or supplying into the medium voltage network, so that if one goes down, others are generating. That way, they can complement each other rather than complement and compete, so as to also ensure that they are delivering their service efficiently and that they are getting the right cost. We are getting the right costs. Because if you find that somebody is probably selling his energy at 10 naira per kilowatt hour, you probably may want to sell at 9 naira so that you can have an edge over him, you know, provided that your delivery is also as efficient. So, I mean, it's work in progress, but we're already moving.
I mean, you are bulldozing your way. It's awesome just to listen to all the plans you have. And it's interesting to hear that you're already getting up to 124 megawatts from the grid. And like you said, you know, it's not about how much you get, but how stable and consistent it is. And that is why even on the national grid, when often we get a spike where you get 5,000 megawatts or 5,300 and there's jubilation, I often say that, you know, you hitting 5,300 is good, but you know, for how long is that? Is that 3 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours? I mean, if you can hit 5,300 over a month, 2 months, 3 months, then we are getting somewhere, because that will show that our national grid is getting much more stronger and can keep that level at for a much longer period. Yeah. So great and excited that there's just so much that's coming to Enugu in terms of generation and all the plans you have. We now have Engineer Ariyomo, the Chairman, Electricity Regulatory Transition Committee, who has just joined us. Thank you for joining us. Are you there? I can see you on. Thank you for joining. I know that it's been a technical nightmare this morning trying to get you on. Are you there, Engineer Stephen?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened this morning. I struggled to make sure I'm here. I thank God I'm here.
No problem. At least it's thank God to have you here just before it's over. So I'll just get right to you because I've been having a great conversation with Chijioke, and how we started is around what sort of market design does Ondo intend to implement. There's not much out there in the public space as to how that will be. So it'd be good to share with us what your market design is for Ondo State. And more importantly, also, just to add on to that, is your tariffs. What's going to happen from tomorrow when you take over regulatory powers from the center? What sort of tariffs? What's your tariff methodology? Enugu has talked to us about a rate of return regulation and everything, and the fact that Enugu will not provide any sort of subsidy support to tariffs. So it'd be good to hear from you, what is the plan for Ondo? What's your market tariff design like? What is the tariff methodology like? And things around the subsidies. Is the state going to subsidize or not? And how would that be moving from today into tomorrow as as an autonomous regulatory state? Over to you, Engineer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me start by telling us and reminding us that we started this issue since 2020 by virtue of the enactment of our law, Ondo State Electric Power Sector Law 2020. And ever since then, in the law, we have been trying to actually work more in off-grid area, because as at then, the Constitution of Nigeria permits us to actually work in that area while also using consumer protection law in the area covered by national grid. But ever since that time now, we have moved on from there, and we all know what happened recently when we were given order to actually regulate our space, that is everything within the space. Yes, by that, we believe that what we work best is collaboration. And that we have started doing to collaborate with the DISCO, collaborate with NEMSA, and collaborate with all the market. Have been able to increase access to our off-grid environment. And by the grace of God, we have issued about 20 permits to the mini-grid, independent mini-grid provider in our various rural communities. And by the grace of God, we have issued license to a company that is already working on 4.5 megawatt at the Ondo Central. Ondo State is divided into 3 senatorial districts. We have the Ondo Central, we have the Ondo North, we have the Ondo South. Presently in Ondo Central, a particular company is working on 4.5 megawatt as we speak. And we have also received interest from Ondo South for a company also that want to pull up 48 megawatt. We are already working on that license. We have told them to go and advertise because we are also following our business rule. I forgot to tell you that we have done our business rule. We have done our guideline on licensing and permit. We have also done our stakeholder on franchising, because we believe that as a state, we also need to create a market that investor will be able to participate in, and that's why we are bringing in franchising. We are also working with the DISCO, the subco, to actually license them, and going forward from there, we'll be able to license as many franchisees as possible. And we have received interest from people, grid-tied participants that are going to actually develop our grid, the national grid, like the TCN. They are partnering with the TCN now to help us develop our infrastructure facility as far as the transmission is concerned. So all this we are doing. And going back to your question about the subsidy, no, the state is not going to give any subsidy. Before now, the state is receiving about 20 megawatt or thereabout from the national grid, which is not enough. And when you look at that, the population, we discovered that we need about 700 megawatt of electricity as far as Ondo State is concerned. So you can imagine the gap now. Where those people get the remaining part? You now discover that they have been doing that using fossil fuel and so on. And when you look at the tariff, that the personal tariff they have been they are subjected to as a result of that is in the neighborhood of 300, 400 naira per kilowatt hour. So you can now see those people, if somebody is now coming around now to give them in the neighborhood of 210 naira per kilowatt hour. So they will quickly embrace that. They will quickly embrace that. That is exactly what we are trying to do. So there's no big deal about that one. Ondo State is going to embrace cost-reflective tariff. And if you come around now, you discover that majority of our feeders have been upgraded now to band A. Because why? People are paying. The DISCO are enjoying that. So people already know, they are aware. They want electricity. Give them electricity, they are going to pay. So then concerning the metering gap, by the grace of God, we partner with the DISCO. And presently now, the state government on its own has rolled out about 10,000 meters, prepaid meters. And we are still going to about 100 million as far as the MOU we signed with the DISCO. So we are prepared. Thank you very much.
Engineer Stephen, that's quite interesting. I think, again, we're talking about subsidies. You said no subsidies. You're talking about, the national grid tariffs being at 200, and that alternative generation, as we know, it is much more expensive. Chijoke spoke to that earlier in our conversation. But, a factor in tariffs really is around losses as well. Today, when you look at the losses of the distribution companies, I'm trying to get on to put up the losses, the ATC and C losses across the country, 9. You see that in Ondo States, which is under Benin, if you look at that graph there, you have the actual at about 31.36%. This is across Benin Distribution Electricity Company, which has not just Ondo, it has Ekiti. Back to the losses space. It has Ondo, it has Ekiti, it has Edo, and it has Delta. Now, the tariffs coming out from that region is a reflection of this loss factor of 31.36%. However, I know that when you unbundle, the losses will look different. Now, I don't know what the losses in Ondo State is, but I can imagine that it will be north of 30 or 40%. And that would impact the level of tariffs, how high that would be. If you add on top of that, capital required to invest in the network and all that, it pushes it up as well. And then when you add on top of that, you're saying that the state will not subsidize, and when you transition, the federal government will have no obligation towards states to continue to subsidize. The tariffs might be much more higher than you are saying. So it's 300, 400, whatever that number is, will be very high. Tomorrow you transition. So what happens? So from tomorrow now in Ondo State, what tariffs will the people be paying? Because once you transition, the federal government is saying, we are no longer responsible for the subsidy element. So what that suggests is that the tariffs are going to go to the cost-reflective tariffs, whatever that would be in your state. So that's the question really. So from tomorrow that you take over, what would the citizens or the electricity consumers or customers in your state be paying? Or is there like a transition arrangement?
Well, thank you very much. Like I said, all of us, we understand what ATC and C losses means. And
Yes.
For some time now, just like I said concerning the Band A, you realize that in Ondo State presently, people are paying. And when you look at the Band A arrangement, it is not being subsidized by the federal government. And people are actually paying. So Band A is meant to be for the commercial people alone. But when you come to Ondo State, you discover that even the residential are begging to be put on Band A. And when you look at the way these feeders are being upgraded almost every day, you know that people are actually paying. So people are aware. They know we have held a lot of consultative meeting with the public, including the disco, and we have been able to tell our people what will happen next. And that is one of the reasons why we now made meter mandatory in Ondo State. Without meter, you are not connected. So, and we have also put in place energy theft curbing arrangement. We already have a court, a special offenses court that will try whoever try to bypass meter and so on and so forth. So meter are out now. People will learn how to manage their electricity. So people are aware. A lot of consultation meetings have we have done, and people are aware. Yes, thank you.
Okay, now,
so as from tomorrow, we are expecting that people will be.
You said as from tomorrow, you're expecting that people will begin to do what?
Yes, removal of the subsidy. They are ready. They are ready for it as from tomorrow.
That's interesting, but we have not seen any. Ondo issued an official tariff methodology somewhere, because I've been on the website and I didn't see anything. Has there been an official tariff methodology, or is the idea to carry on with the existing tariff methodology of NERC until, because that's what Ekiti State is doing. They are carrying it on for a period.
Yes, that's exactly what we are doing. I forgot to mention that. That's exactly what we are doing. We are. I forgot to also tell you that there are some regulation of NERC that we are also adopting presently going forward until we are able to do adjustment to them, including the tariff methodology. We are using that of NERC.
Okay,
the only
fantastic.
difference will be the subsidy will be removed. Yes.
Will be removed. Okay,
Yeah.
That's interesting to see how that will play out. If subsidies are removed, what then happens? Because Band E tariffs is going to go up much higher than it is today, and all across up to Band B, it's going to go up. Be interesting to see how your citizens take that. But like you said, they are all rooting for a Band A tariff.
Yes, the rest of our figures are being upgraded almost every day.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let me go back to Chijoke. Thank you, Engineer Stephen. Actually, Engineer Stephen mentioned metering, what the state is doing for meters to bridge the gap. And I would like to hear from you. Today, as you know, we have MAP metering initiative. We have the NNMP, the National Mass Metering one. We have the PPI. There's even an element of metering in the Presidential Power Initiative that is managed by the FGN Power Company. Then you have the Presidential Metering Initiative, which is recent and will be managed through the Smart Grid Development Limited. So, and of course, at the center, you have a tariff wherein NERC is taking out a percentage of the revenues into a meter asset fund to again support metering. Now, in light of all this, what is the plan in Enugu State to bridge the metering gap? What are you doing? And is there any form of collaboration or conversation going at the federal level because of all these programs? I mean, PPI, PMI, NNMP, you know, and then the MAF, which the regulator is provisioning for. How, you know, is that going to work in this transition? What's that transition? What would it look like in terms of leveraging on all these initiatives for your state, and what additional effort will be done at the state level to bridge the gap in metering?
Okay, so let me start with the metering code and everything. While we are going to adopt and adapt the metering code in Enugu State, we are actually also going to take advantage of, should I call it, the contribution so far, and what I should think that quite a number of the initiatives that has already been that's been put in place. Enugu State indirectly has been a part of it till date when it comes to federal government intervention, because it's a national intervention. I mean, again, let me just say this. We are still citizens of Nigeria. So we do not see ourselves being removed from the national arrangement of Nigeria. You know?
Okay.
So whatever has happened to date, you know, we will definitely get our benefits as it pertains to initiatives like this, like the metering arrangement as it is. However, we have also our consumer services standards and protection regulation speaks to the fact that metering is a responsibility of the service provider, not the customer. And we expect that our customers will be metered by their service provider. Now, again, it's not going to be automatic. No, it will definitely take time. And that time is what we need to work out with the service providers. If you remember, I had stated that where a service provider is not able to meet the specific needs of the customers, that it can open up, and I'm looking at it from the retailing level, because metering, reinforcing the supply network between 11 kVA downwards will become the responsibility as of the retailing companies, that's electricity or energy retailing companies, as we evolve into our market based on our market design. So we expect that those that are coming into play at that level would not only meter the customers, but also reinforce the network, extend the lines to new customers, and run that business. That is where our distribution company has separated from the wires business of 330 kVA to the retailing business of 11 kVA downwards. That's one part. The second aspect is that we're opening the market for meters to come into Nigeria. I mean, quite a number of companies have actually come to present us with their meters certified by NERC and are guaranteeing the durability of these meters. So we would want a situation whereby the distribution, the service providers, or starting with the distribution company, but evolving to the retailing companies, can access meters very easily, be it based on an arrangement you have with the consumers that probably will want to buy the meters for their residents, and then you refund them by way of energy, or you are actually procuring it because you're a retailing company, and definitely you're coming in to make some investment, which after in your recovery, in your tariff, you're coming in to buy these meters and install to customers. So we're also making the market for metering competitive by opening it for any player to come in and supply their meters, provided you're guaranteeing the durability of the meters. You are, your meters have been certified by either NERC or any of the other certification agencies or companies that are established here in Nigeria, and that it meets the metering standards in line with the national metering code. You know, that way we are creating a market that could actually drive down the cost of these meters, and opening it up for customers that probably want to also pay for their meters, or opening it up in 2 ways: for customers to pay for their meters or have their service providers procure the meters and install. But yes, we would work with all the service providers to determine a plan with specific targets or timelines in which we expect that all the customers that are already connected on estimated billing are effectively metered, so that they themselves would even have that comfort of being able to account for their own consumption.
Okay, I mean, you talk about estimated billing, which is another thing to talk about, and I'll go to Engineer Stephen as well to hear his thoughts. Estimated billing. There's been so much debate on estimated billing. Even, National Assembly getting involved. We're no longer going to have estimated billing. There's question about the fairness of the NERC methodology for estimation of bills for customers that don't have meters. So in Enugu, are you having a different estimated billing? So I was saying that you mentioned estimated billing. So I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are. I mean, I've opened the floor now, and there are questions that have been posted from the audience. I will get into those questions shortly. But I would like to know from you on the estimated billing. Are you carrying on with the existing billing methodology, estimated billing methodology of NERC, or there's a different approach to it? What's the plan for that? I mean, in the interim, because obviously not everybody will be metered, at the snap of a finger.
Is that for me or for
you? It's for you first. You go first,
okay.
Then I'll go to.
Okay. So yes, we will carry on with the, should I call it, final price cap for a period of time, because yes, there is also that cap for supply that has already been put in place by NERC. And we know that, yes, it continues to change. Now, let me put it this way. While we are working out whatever the actual issues are, be it for, how do I put it now, the actual tariff or the estimated billing, where it exists, it's all the work we need to do with our subco to determine the number of customers. After reviewing this customer base, how many of them are metered, how many of them are not metered? It's an evaluation that is currently going on, and it's a conversation that will continue until we can determine their tariff. And implemented in reviewing this, we know that time lag that our customers will continue to receive estimated billing, or within the time lag in which this review is going on, and we put in place a plan that would actually start seeing more of the customers being metered in the shortest possible time. We know that there is a time lag, and that time lag would have to be accommodated, but it has to be based on a cap as to how much you can actually deliver to these customers and deliver effectively for them to act, because they would also be getting back to us. We want to see their bill. We want to see that you met that cap in the first place and that they're not overbilled beyond what was agreed, with respect to the cap itself, what is supposed to have been delivered to them, and how much they're expected to pay for that energy that has been delivered to them. So, okay,
so I guess what you're saying is that you're going to maintain the methodology of NERC
for a period, for just a period that will be agreed with, yes, to now have that metering solution also being put in place or implemented.
All right. Okay, Engineer Stephen, how about for Ondo State? What is the plan on estimated bill? Do we carry on with what you have, or is there something different?
Yes, for Ondo State, we will adopt the NERC cap on estimated billing, but it's not going to stay forever, because just like I said, the policy of Ondo State now is if you don't have meter, you cannot connect to electricity.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's the policy now. It's like, it's a criminal offense now for you to just connect without having meter. Because why are we criminalizing it? Because our law says that, and there are meters meters are available in Ondo State for anyone who wants to buy meter. If you don't have meter, you cannot be connected. And as a result of that, we make sure that meters are available. The one from Ondo State, the one from the DISCO. In fact, DISCO is running a program in Ondo State presently that if you have your money, you get your meter and get installed within 24 hours. It is called mobile metering. You see, all these things borders on regulation. We did that regulation, I think, about 3 months ago, that meters should be made available, that every DISCO operating in Ondo State must make sure that meters are available. And before you know it, you see meter asset providers coming into the state to come and showcase what they have. And we gave them permit. As many of them that register, we give them permit. And you can imagine meters are available in Ondo State. Where we are going now is at a point in time, people will be able to go to the market, buy meter, get installer, and install and begin to use. So with that now, if somebody is now saying he doesn't want meter, you know automatically that person will continue to steal electricity. And we already put in place a court that is called Special Offences Court to undo that. But we also know that everybody cannot be meter in a day. So we also gave allowance that, okay, if you want to continue to enjoy the estimated billing, but we are going to use NERC. But we are going to do something. Immediately you discover that, just like we have been doing before, you discover that there are issues with your estimated billing. If your estimated billing is now becoming outrageous, then there is a policy in Ondo State, there's a regulation whereby we will now do what we call reconciliation. Yes, we have seen situations whereby a particular customer has estimated billing in the neighborhood of 200,000, and then when we and DISCO come together to reconcile, such people will be given credit facility of about 150,000. And you see, so we have been doing that. So it borders on regulation. When we get the right regulation in place, things will work fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Engineer Stephen. But of course, I mean, I think it's important to state that the estimated billing methodology has sort of created a perversive incentive, because if my energy consumption is capped alongside perhaps another house in my neighborhood as it is, I will not, my demand side management, energy demand side management will not be there. I will not be conscious of my consumption because it's capped. And this is what leads to a lot of losses for the distribution company. And this has often been their complaint over time. Also, you can look at it from the regulatory point of view that if the regulator does not do this, then perhaps there'll be no rush on the part of the utility to ensure that they meter the customers. So I think trying to find a balance between these two to ensure that estimated billing actually does not incentivize customers from not looking, wanting to have a meter, and also, pushing the utility, and everyone to ensure that they meter every customer that comes online. So it's good that the policy you have is that if you do not have a meter, then you can't be connected. I think that is the way to go. I'm going online now to the audience, and the first question there is to you, Chijoke. Mr. Ikechukwu Azogwa said, "Dear Chijoke, please can you explain more on the social intervention of the EERC, especially when subsidy is not considered? While we promote energy transition, can we still think towards smart energy transition?" Do you want to say one or two things to that? Respond to that question. He's talking about social.
So what we're doing, the social interventions that EERC is doing is to get basically everything that we're doing is targeted towards ensuring electricity access to the citizens of the state. Let me profile this example that has already been initiated and is being implemented. We know that quite a number of our rural areas that are not connected to the electricity infrastructure would need to have some sort of off-taker first that would attract that right kind of investor to set up, be it a solar solution. you know, with a renewable energy that has the right kind of backups. So what are we using? Enugu State government is building 260 smart schools across the 260 wards in the 17 local governments in the state. And we are to provide an electrification solution to each of these smart schools. We are also using and proposing that these smart schools act as anchor load in locations that are completely removed from every electricity infrastructure. So we expect that the smart schools, for certain, will be paying their bills, attract that at least 100 kilowatts at peak, between 60 to 100 kilowatts at peak. Let me say, for example, solar solution that would now be connected, or that the developer can now see they need to connect neighboring the community, and expand his services as he's delivering that energy that is already paying its original bill. Mm. The second aspect is what is happening through the ESEA. Enugu State Electrification Agency itself has been set up to manage the electrification funds. It's evolving from being the rural electrification agency that connects quite a number of the communities that do not have access to electricity to the network. Now, it won't be undertaking these projects anymore. Instead, it will be supporting the private sector developer that is willing to take advantage of this opportunity, these low-hanging fruits, to develop its project. And not only fund those projects, but I have said earlier that it would also take on the right of way and also provide for the land, you know, or facilitate access to land, so as to remove these costs from any developer's capex, inevitably reducing the cost that has to be recovered. So that when we are calculating the tariff, we are removing the state's own investments to support such projects. That way, these projects are targeted to citizens of the state, consumers that would have a lower tariff to pay, but have already had the cost of developing this infrastructure reduced. So they are actually paying something that is effectively lower. So we are willing to support production or infrastructure projects rather than consumption. And yes, we're definitely going to implement the demand side management arrangements at this very early stages. In fact, that is one of the plans that we are actually developing right now, the strategy to implement demand side management for those that are actually burdened by those heavy bills because they are on band A. Especially, well, we know that all hands are not equal. So some people can comfortably pay for it, while others may be struggling to pay for it. So, I mean, we would want a situation whereby they can actually get as much service for electricity services as they can pay for, but let it not be that it is not available. Consume as much as you can pay for, you know, but let it be available to every citizen within the state. And yes, for where it doesn't exist, we're starting with a solar solution that probably can even provide 8 hours. There is a big difference between not having access at all to getting at least 8 hours. That is progress. Like I said, we won't achieve everything 24/7 in one day, but build it up as we progress to targeted specific communities where it doesn't exist at all. That's the unserved, to the point where we can even manage those that are underserved by ensuring that it's available 24/7, that there is improvement in their delivery, but also teaching them that demand side management of consumption.
Very important. I think, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes for something to work, there must be concurrent effort to make that to go through. A question, I think one question to Engineer Stephen before we wrap up the session in 10 minutes. Engineer Stephen, someone asked, what is the rationale of shifting the cost on metering to the consumer? It may be understandable with the position of Chijioke saying there may be an understanding to reward the consumer for self-providing meter with energy. Why don't Ondo State consider that option too? Essentially, the question here is, you're moving the cost of meter to the customer. Does that mean that the customer now owns the meters? Because again, there's an issue of ownership. Where does that lie? I think the way I look at it as a utility, for you to ensure that you get your revenues, you must put in the assets to secure that revenue assurance. But if you put it on the customers, then how would that work? I mean, I guess that is where the participant asking this question is maybe coming from.
Well, thank you very much. You know that, well, even as of today, we are in transition.
Yes.
When you look at the mini-grid providers, the off-grid providers, they are mandated to buy meter and install for their consumers. How? Because they know they will lose revenue if they don't do that. But because we are in transition, and we have discovered that estimated billing that is now outrageous in Ondo State is killing the consumers. And we have also done a lot of stakeholder engagement with the consumers. And we told them that if you see meter, are you going to buy? And all of us agree that they are going to buy. So we decided to put the DISCO on their toes by engaging that. But when you look at the MOU we signed with the DISCO, all this, the cost of meters will be paid over a period of time through credit vending. That is the arrangement. So eventually, it's going to be zero cost to the consumer.
Fantastic. So before we wrap up, there are two questions, and it's going to both of you. I think tomorrow being the D-Day for you to take over yourself, that's Ondo States, Ekiti, and Enugu State. In the transition order that was given to you, there are a number of boxes to tick to show that you are ready for that transition. The order which I'm looking at talks about having your state distribution company incorporated. It talks about transferring liabilities, assets, employees, and relevant contractual rights. It talks about informing NERC and taking the regulatory powers. It talks about boundary meters across, in between states where you share boundaries, because assets cut across multiple states, and all those boundaries must be effectively metered for this transition to happen. And of course, it also talks about establishing an intergovernmental body to promote harmonious relationship between the states, the center, and the states. Now, I think to wrap up, what I would like to hear from both of you is, what are you, are all the boxes ticked on that transition order? And if not, what are those things that are yet to be fulfilled, which can be done in a transition? Even if you took over, perhaps in an interim period, that will be fulfilled. And lastly, what advice or lessons learned you'd like to share with your other state colleagues that are in the pipeline in actually taking over regulatory powers from the center to now managing the business at the state level? What sort of things you'd like to advise them so that they are mindful of that in preparing for this transition like yourselves? Please, 2 minutes each. Chijioke, let's start with you, please.
Okay. Let me put it this. Let me start by saying that we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. Yes. We have actually privatized distribution and generation. And while TCN is still under the federal ownership, it's expected to be concessioned of or a management contractor brought in to manage grid supply. One thing that the Electricity Act has done that every state should take advantage of is the fact that it has opened up an opportunity for the states to play in the electricity space. That doesn't remove you from being a part of the whole. We are intending on buying power. Our sub-disco is intending on buying power from the national grid, which will make it a market participant And that is where that line is drawn, that once the energy is on the national grid, it is overseen by NERC. The moment it's transmitted into the 33 kVA network, the state regulator assumes control. So we do not see a conflict. Instead, we see a collaborative effort or arrangement between the national regulator and the state regulatory institution. That's on one side, the regulatory component of it. On the operational side, it is also very clear because, like you rightly said, the delineation of our boundaries, be it technical and geographical, is a function or responsibility of the distribution company operating within our space. The moment our SOPCO has been incorporated and these assets that has been delineated, effectively delineated and metered, so that we know what is being consumed within the state boundaries, be it technical or geographical, then we can account for energy coming in and going out of our state. The moment it's within our state, we as the regulatory entity that has been set up in Enugu State know that this is ours to oversee. The moment it leaves our state, we know that the boundary is clear. It either becomes the next state's responsibility that is going into or the national regulator's responsibility. But we are not saying that we're going to cut ourselves off from the wholesale electricity market and arrangement as it is. So I encourage other states to take this initiative, because what you're going to do in setting up your own state-specific market is to complement what we currently have in the system. I mean, the federal government can now focus on expanding the grid and being able to get all the GENCOs we have with the stranded 13,000 megawatts, you know, supplied into that grid network or arrangement so as to meet our specific requirements. But if that cannot happen because of the age and dilapidated nature of our grid system, then let us start generating true embedded generation or meeting supplies, be it with renewables or any other resource that we have available. So we see ourselves as complementing what is happening between the national level and the state level. That is on one side. The challenges you will face, because it's not without challenges, the challenges you face is in not doing that homework. The first part is to put that policy in place so that you even have a direction based on the aspirations that is in the best interest of the citizens within that state.
Yeah.
We know that our solution may not work in Kano State. We know that our solution may not work in River State. It has to be homegrown. And that policy aspect will determine the kind of market you want that can go into the state law so that it is binding, that are serious about this, that is not just an executive order, but that the state itself is serious about it. Enugu State is serious about solving the problem of electricity for the entire citizens of the state, which is why the State House of Assembly, representing all the local governments and all the communities and the people of Enugu State, endorsed that law, made adjustments to it, and it is the driving force behind us.
Awesome.
I mean, putting in place structures that would help us develop that market that meets any investors' requirements. That are they ready to pay their bills? Yes, we are. But are you going to deliver on excellent service to the off-takers that can take advantage of that power and start up a small and medium-scale business that improves the economy and quality of life of the citizens, to the point that the opportunities we are putting in place could be taken advantage of by other states to develop Nigeria as a whole. Let it not be something that we will do. We are willing to expose everything we have done. Our website speaks volumes of the structures that we're putting in place. Yeah. And I know I have to stop here.
Yes, you have to stop here. Thank you so much. I mean, if you stayed here all day, we'll be talking. I mean, and the questions are just pouring in from the audience. We will be responding to them. And, you know, thank you very much, you know, for the offer to, you know, share everything. I love your website, by the way. It's so interactive.
We will continue to
information
upload and populate
so thank you very much. Now, the final word from Engineer Stephen, please, for Ondo. What is your advice to your fellow states, and last remarks?
Well, thank you very much for this kind of program. My advice to other states would be let us not do a policy that will not work for us. One of the problems with policy is that the policy that will work in Ondo State, if we don't develop it in Ondo State, if we decide to transport policy from a neighboring state, it may not work. It has to do with this Taylor ideology. If you show a cap for somebody in Ekiti, and you decide to bring that cap and give to another person in Ondo, it may not fit in properly. We have to do our own, and that is what, if you look at our law very well, you know that our law was designed to solve our problem. If you look inside the law, you see the law was talking about each senatorial district and their peculiarity, and it was solving it like that. So, and what I discover about the law that is coming up every day among the states now is like people are just copying it, and they are copying and copying and copying. I'm afraid if we are not careful, those laws may not eventually work. And if your law is not okay right from the beginning, you can be sure that your electricity market will be faulty. So I want to advise them, look inwards, sit down, look at your problem, and find a means of solving it. That is when you can create an effective electricity market. For Ondo State, we are ready and we are moving on. A journey that has started in 2020, you know, is not a joke, and we are moving ahead, and we are also looking as we are going. Thank you very much.
Super awesome. So thank you very, very much. And I agree with you 100%, Engineer Stephen, that, you know, I mean, you sort of get the sense that there's this sort of copying, copy and pasting. And I think you've said, and you've made an important point, that every state needs to look inward and tailor what is important to them. Your law, your energy policy, how you intend to structure your design of the market that will be fit for purpose, and not just because others are running or they're doing, whatever, but you need to look inward, make the right studying, understand what your energy needs are, understand how you want to meet your customer demand in different ways, understand the network, how does a network in your state, interconnect with the national to boost your power that is coming, what sort of licensing you are giving out, and more importantly is ensuring that whatever you put out there, it builds confidence for the investors, and also the customers, understand that the state also are trying to see to their interest. And that's the biggest challenge for a regulator, to try to balance all the interests: customer interest, investors' interest, shareholders' interest, government interest, all that is really the big task before all of you who is starting off from tomorrow. So I thank you very much for taking out time to join. I know you two are very busy men, but you've taken out time to join us today, and we'll be looking out for everything that you said. We'll be rooting for you. I know it's not easy. A lot of people didn't really have confidence in the states, taking this off. So it's really good to see that there's so much energy between both of you in really forging ahead and making this work. And obviously, we know that there will be mistakes. It's not perfect. Some of the things you need to go back, change, redesign to fit what comes ahead of you. But I think that should not deter anybody. We should just keep forging ahead. The federal government did it for 10 years and it's still not perfect. So we don't expect perfection. We expect that, the state to be mindful of the customers, what is happening economically in that state, and ensuring that everyone is okay. So thank you once again, Chijoke. Thank you, Engineer Stevie, for joining us. And thank you to our audience. There are a lot of questions that have come through. EMRC will compile them, respond to them, and post them out. And obviously, we'll let you know what the next webinar will. Maybe another 6 months, we'll have you two back here telling us the fantastic implementation of your plans with us. So thank you once again, and have a lovely week ahead of you. We'll be looking out for you tomorrow. Thank you again, and have a good afternoon. Bye for now. Thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
And have a wonderful day.
All right.
Thank you,
All right, then. Bye-bye. Thank you. All right, then.